So I saw it yesterday, and Benny, you know I respect you, and I know you're not a bomb thrower, and we could have a real conversation, and I might be missing something that you are seeing. I look at things. I've been in broadcast now for 49 years, so I know the FCC inside and out. I know all the rules, et cetera, and I can't find my way around it. But in some ways, man, would I love to. I'm so sick of all of this stuff. But I want to make sure we're not violating the principles that we all hold dear. So
sure.
I said yesterday that if I worked at ABC, if I were running ABC, I'd fire Jimmy Kimmel in a heartbeat because of standards. It's reprehensible what he has done. And I would send a message to the country, we're not for that, okay? And if I would have said something like that about Barack Obama at Fox, I would have expected to be fired. However, with that being said, I don't see the FCC move here. And if there is an FCC move, I'd prefer the president, although I do prefer that he's out in the open, unlike Joe Biden where they're hiding it. I prefer that it's not directed by the president. I prefer that it is something that is just the FCC takes care of because it's a clear violation. But I can't find the violation. You may be able to. So help me out, Benny.
Sure. So let's attack this from three different perspectives, Glenn. First, the moral obligations, then the regulatory obligations, and then what I find most important is the obligations of our movement in order to establish barriers and to have instructive moments. And I think this is one, certainly. The moral obligation. Yep. Glenn, you had a hit show on Fox for how many years? A decade? You were the number one rated broadcast in the world on cable news for how long?
I don't know. 2 years.
Okay. Either way, it was must-see TV. You made the chalkboard. You probably sold more. You're probably the biggest chalkboard salesman in the history of the world.
The chalkboard industry does love me. Yes,
that's exactly right.
Yes, right. Yes.
If you went out on your show and you were very prescient. I mean, I got to tell you, man, there was nothing like Glenn Beck calling out the Soros Foundation from 1,000 yards away when nobody was talking about this kind of stuff. You were talking about Bill Ayers. You were saying some pretty radical stuff about Barack Obama. Yeah. All of it turned out to be true, but you wouldn't even have been able to finish your opening monologue if you had said Michelle Obama deserves to be a widow.
Correct.
If you had said Michelle Obama deserves to be a widow, and not only that, a glowing widow, meaning she would like for her husband to die, then you wouldn't have been. You would have been pulled from the show, right? You wouldn't. The 5 second.
Right, and I would have deserved
am I wrong?
it. However,
am I wrong?
No. But
okay,
hang on,
so
just
if you
a second.
said that about Hillary Clinton, if you said about Hillary Clinton or Jill Biden, you would have been pulled as well. And if you would use Jimmy Kimmel's ration, so this is the moral. This is like the moral. We're going to talk about like the moral. Yeah,
Betty, wait.
Yes,
but I wouldn't have had the FCC come after me. Fox would have done it. The FCC doesn't have anything to do with cable news, so they couldn't have done it that way. They would have. What would have happened is the left would have mounted a campaign, and the right would have folded. And Fox, honestly, I think Fox would have been right to fire me had I said something like that. Okay, agree. But it wouldn't have been the FCC, and it wouldn't have been the federal government.
Glenn, please allow me to construct my argument. I'll wheel in a chalkboard next time,
I'm sorry.
and I'll draw it out. Okay, I'll draw it out for you.
All right,
okay,
go ahead.
Let's go. Right. So first off, there is no moral ground for Jimmy Kimmel to stand on. If Jimmy Kimmel himself had said this about Jill Biden and used the same rationale, because Jill Biden is significantly younger than Joe, like by, I think, 15 years. And he said, well, Melania is younger than Trump. That's why she's an expectant widow. It wouldn't apply to Jill Biden. If he had said Jill Biden is an expectant widow, Joe Biden has terminal cancer, he'd be ripped off air too. Same thing about Hillary Clinton. Hillary's younger than Bill. And Bill's not in good shape. But he wouldn't be able to get away with that. We all know what's going on. It's permissible to celebrate and to fetishize the death of Republicans. And that's what they're signaling here. And so I want to just establish that morally, you wouldn't be able to get away with it any other way. And the fact that they're letting them get away with it.
100% agree.
Yeah, on this. And then with that BS rationale, of course, that, she's younger, so I can say something like this. How about this, Glenn? I was raised in Shoeyville, Iowa. This is a town of 412 people. There is one gas station that's also the town bar and also the town pizzeria and also the town VHS rental shop. That's where I grew up. If you were to walk into that bar on a Friday night, and you normally could, and find a couple of old timers sitting there with their wives, and they're both having a light beer, right? And that's how they unwind on a Friday night at the gas station bar, pizzeria, video rental shop. And if you were to walk up to that farmer and say, your wife looks like an expectant widow, what do you think would happen?
I get my ass kicked. Punched in the mouth.
I get my ass kicked across the street and into the soybean field. That's what would happen in Shoeyville, Iowa, where I'm from. Probably where you're from too, I would assume. Right? Mm-hmm. Nobody would ever, like, no, in no universe is Jimmy Kimmel's explanation of this logical. Not with other first ladies, not with your wife, not with anyone's wife. So, and on every level, this should be knocked down. And the FCC is going to. The FCC took action against ABC News in their own station yesterday. And I want to talk through why this is different than what we could say on this program or what we could say anywhere else, because you are free to say that. You are free. I would be free to walk into that bar and suffer the consequences of the farmer punching me in the mouth. Jimmy Kimmel is free to stand on a street corner, pick up a cardboard box, scribble on it, and yell whatever he wants. He's gone to No Kings protests. He's done this. I'm not saying Jimmy Kimmel shouldn't do this. I'm not against Jimmy Kimmel's free speech. That's free speech. What I am against is taxpayer-subsidized calls to assassination, which is what we are doing right now with Jimmy Kimmel. Let me explain. Jimmy Kimmel operates on a federal broadcast license. This is from the FCC. These are authorities that were granted to specific networks in 1923. These specific networks have an option to operate on an electromagnetic spectrum that is considered a scarce public resource that the FCC manages and licenses specifically to prevent interference between stations so that they can have licensures and broadcasts in times of emergency. These broadcasters must serve in the public interest and convenience and necessity and have core legal standards and obligations under the 1924 Communications Acts. These licensees do not own the spectrum. The government owns the spectrum. The government gives them a temporary privilege to use that spectrum. This applies to some AM, FM radio stations. It applies to all major public broadcasters. That would be PBS, ABC, NBC, and CBS. They have to exist under a fair time, equal time in the public interest broadcasters, and they can be penalized or have their licenses stripped if they are found to be broadcasting profanity, pornography, if they are found to be broadcasting untruths, things that they know are verifiable lies, if they are found to be operating outside of the public interest, which is a broad legal descriptor of what your broadcast should be. And I would argue, Glenn, that since Jimmy Kimmel is using this billion, if not trillions of dollars of infrastructure that was built by the government, that's maintained by the taxpayers, that has been serviced by our federal dollars, that he should have to apply for these standards. And these standards do not cover him making fun of Charlie Kirk's assassination, calling for the assassination of a duly elected president. In no universe should that be allowed. So that it is impermissible under the operations of Jimmy Kimmel's and ABC News's lavish privileges that they get from the federal taxpayer dollars. Jimmy Kimmel can do what every other bum does and get on a street corner with a cardboard sign. He can start a YouTube. He can go on Spotify. Jimmy Kimmel can do whatever the hell he wants. He can do smoke signals up in the mountains. That's also free speech. But Jimmy Kimmel shouldn't be able to use my tax dollars at force, which is what's going on, because if you don't pay taxes and I don't pay taxes to Jimmy Kimmel, we go to prison. So that's force. With that force and with that privilege comes standards. Therefore, Jimmy Kimmel should be ripped off air and the FCC should do a full investigation of ABC and their broadcast licenses. And sure as shooting, Glenn, that's exactly what they're doing right now.
Tell me about the taxpayer funding. Go a little deeper on that for me, Benny. And then let's talk about the movement, because you said it was moral. I think you made the case on that. Regulatory, I'm not sure. And then what it means for the movement. So let's go back to the funding.
So this electromagnetic spectrum is maintained by transistors. It is maintained by towers, and those towers are incredibly important to the broadcast capacity.
They're all paid for by the local stations or the corporations, not the federal government. None of that is federal government money.
Of course, but what those licenses allow is for federal deductions. It allows for operations to be maintained throughout this system. The corporations that own these licenses have these lavish privileges in order to broadcast directly into every single home. How much more valuable would my program be if every TV came with The Benny Show? Loaded in and locked in, and it's just a channel you click on and you don't have to pay for. Again, like there are federal subsidies that go into that. And Glenn, you've been around this business enough to know that these kind of things become massive write-offs. These kind of things have huge loopholes, and one way or another, the taxpayer ends up paying for it.
I can't go there with you, but I can see your point. But I can't go there with you. I mean, it's because that's a business expense, and don't let me do your taxes.
Broadcast.
I know ABC broadcast is worth much less than a cable network is now, and both of them are going to hell in a handbasket because of the internet. So it's not like it was 20 years ago. But go ahead.
How much more valuable would my program be if every single TV in the country for the last 100 years had my program automatically loaded into it for $0? That is a massive gift to every broadcaster that gets those precious licenses.
It is a gift, but it is a diminishing gift. But I get it. All right, go ahead.
But doesn't the American tax, through the FCC and through the use of that bandwidth and through the giving of that bandwidth and then the maintenance, even if that maintenance comes directly from the FCC and their own staff, and the licensures and the phalanx of lawyers that it takes to run the FCC and to monitor all this, isn't that prima facie a gift from the taxpayer?
Actually, it's a curse on the taxpayer. I'd like to see all of it abolished myself.
Thank you.
But now I don't want to make the case that, hey, we need more lawyers and more regulations.
Now we're talking, Glenn.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So go to the movement. Go to the movement. What does this mean about our movement?
Yeah. So you were at Charlie's funeral. You did a number of events and we're so close with Charlie. And when I saw what Jimmy Kimmel did to my dear friend in the mere hours after his death, which is, of course, to lie about the nature of the shooting, to lie in favor of the assassin, to lie about who the assassin was and why they killed Charlie. To call him MAGA is to say that Charlie deserved that death because Charlie would have been a MAGA movement president in the coming years. He would have been probably 49 or 50. So to say that his shooter was MAGA is to say that Charlie created the movement that killed him, which is, of course, the opposite of what happened. Jimmy Kimmel refused to talk about motive. He did the same thing, by the way, in his non-apology to Melania Trump last night. He refused to talk about the gunman's motive in Washington, D.C. This alone is, of course, lying by omission. They know damn well why these people are murdering Republicans, Trump, or trying to murder Trump and murdering Charlie. And so when I saw Jimmy Kimmel do that, I said, of course, this is abhorrent. And we led the charge on social media to say this is totally wrong and people need to call their local broadcast affiliates to get Jimmy Kimmel ripped off air. And sure enough, Jimmy Kimmel got taken off air for a week or two. But what happened afterward repulsed me and made me so angry because what happened afterwards was we got woke scolded by our own side. By people on our own side. Ben Shapiro, Ted Cruz used this as an opportunity to get a little doggy treat and a pat on the head by the left, and to say in this moment where I'm simply trying to defend the legacy of Charlie and say this is disgusting, which, by the way, Erica agrees with me. All of the individuals at Turning Point that currently operate and built Charlie's show with him, they all agree with me. They were all repulsed and sickened by this.
So was I.
We had attacks from the right telling us which is what always happens, which is, well, could you imagine if it was on the other side? No, I couldn't, because I don't have a federal broadcast license, because the taxpayers don't subsidize my programming. I am making the case. I'm not making a free speech case. I personally believe that my side is benefited And certainly my channels are benefited every time Jimmy Kimmel says something stupid. Okay, I want Jimmy Kimmel to speak as much as possible. I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to subsidize it. And there are standards that come with that subsidy. And so that was the point I was making. The American taxpayer shouldn't be forced to listen to this. And multiple stations like Nexstar and Sinclair said, no, we agree with you. They shouldn't. And they shut Jimmy Kimmel down by preempting his show. And so that is the thing that is instructive for the movement. When the left gets an opportunity to exercise power over us, they take it and they wield it with an iron fist. And I'm calling for the right to do the same thing.
Benny, great points. I want to digest them. I'm going to take it under advisement. I'm going to give my response here in about half an hour, but I appreciate it. I'm glad you were on. I think you make some good points. Thank you so much. God bless you, Benny.
Thanks, Glenn.
You bet. Is Benny Johnson, host of The Benny Show. You can find him anywhere except on broadcast television. BennyJohnson.com, BennyJohnson.com.